If you want comprehensive shoulders, if you want those 3D delts that are capped, making you look like a Dragon Ball Z character, because that's what got most of us into fitness, you should be training your side delts. And my go-to exercise is the incline dumbbell lateral raise. The reason being is because your torso is fixed, and that takes out a lot of the unnecessary compensation, momentum, and cheating that you can actually do. And the added benefit here is you're getting more of a stretch on the lateral delts as you're doing your lateral raises. And one of the criticisms of dumbbell laterals is there's not constant tension. When you do it, you have to really, use a lot of oomph out of the bottom, and then you kind of don't feel anything, especially towards, you keep going. Whereas if you do the incline laterals, you're gonna feel it right from the start, all the way up to, if you choose to stop at shoulder height. And that really makes up for some of the criticisms of this exercise. I love it because it's accessible. You can always just hop on a bench to do this. If all of your benches are taken, you can go hog a lat pull down or something like that and just lean your body against it. You can still do it. I've even done it against the preacher curl bench. Nice. You can picture this, just setting up, body at around 45 degrees, and you can go through that one. Really like doing higher reps for this. Smaller muscle group, you're not going to, hey bro, can you do a 3 to 5 reps on the lateral raise? It's just not going to get much muscle stimulus. Form's going to be pretty sloppy. So with these, really pushing them quite hard is important. Most people stop at technical failure when the arms get to some arbitrary level where they think that that's all they've got. Oh man, you got more to give. Especially seeing Jeff's way of training, just period. I've really embodied that in my own practice. And when you think you've done your set, you can probably do 5 more quality failure reps, stopping at 3/4, half, quarter, and that's a good set. I like the sensation of finishing my laterals where I'm barely even lifting the arms. That's when you're starting to tap into some actual muscle damage with these bad boys. What you can also do, people like as well, is strapping up for lateral raises. Because if you do a really high rep set of these, inevitably your grip will be fatiguing. It's not as if you're going to just drop the dumbbells, but I think sometimes we stop laterals because we're sensing some grip fatigue and we just want to refresh that area. So one thing, if you wanted to really push yourself on these, I'm not against strapping up some laterals, maybe as your last set, just so that you can get some grip stuff in your first few sets.
Yeah, I really like those. This is the first time I've done them, and man, definitely significantly different from just a typical standing dumbbell lateral raise. So I'll probably keep those in some capacity. So thank you for teaching me those.
All good, bro. No worries.
I'm gonna keep them. I will say though, probably a cable lateral raise, but I have changed how I've done them. It's one of those movements that you can always go heavier if you really want, but you might not get as much out of it, where you can shrug up and start getting more traps involved. You can start to what I call teacup, so where you're twisting back and forth. And if you do this, it means you're actually reducing the range of motion. You might feel like the cable is moving a further distance, and it is, but when you do this, you're getting less stretch. And when you do this, you're not even getting like a full contraction.
It's relative torso movement, which is changing the arm path.
Exactly, right? And so it's like, I'm a little teacup, and that's what they're doing, right? So if anything, you would want to do the opposite, right? Where you're not leaning down in the bottom position, you're trying to lean away in the bottom position. Now, I typically tend to actually keep the torso fixed. You don't have to try to do this, the opposite of what the instinct is. But it's important to realize what is going on with your torso position for this movement. And then also what your shoulder position is going on, right? So what I really try to focus on is getting that big stretch at the bottom and then really trying to drive up and keep the shoulder down. I try to look at my delt in the mirror and see like a delt dimple, right? Where if you're shrugged up, you won't see, you're leaner, so you can probably see it better there's this delt dimple. So if you do a cable lateral, you'll see where you'll be able to store some water. in your delt,
Yeah,
right?
that's it.
Like you're a camel or something. But if you're shrugged up, you're letting the water out. So, and then you can look in the mirror in front of you if you have one, and you should be able to see that delt dimple. If you can't see it, it means you're probably leaning back and hitting more front delt or a little bit more rotator.
In terms of cable attachment, are you going in front of body, behind body?
So I've typically gone in front. Behind could allow you a little bit more of a stretch, but I like to go in front as long as I keep a little bit of elbow bend. For me, if I keep a totally straight elbow, I don't feel as much in that bottom position. So I actually keep a little bit of bend, and then I keep a little bit lean forward just for a little bit more scapula plane, and then just focus on pushing out. And all of these things reduce the amount of weight that I can lift, right? Like I could double the weight if I started teacupping, if I started leaning back, getting rotator, getting front delt.
And that little stretch reflex that we all do when we're trying to, oh, last week I did X weight for X reps, I'm gonna beat it. So then you start going,
Bounce,
boom,
bounce.
bottom bounce again.
All these other muscle groups are so much stronger than the side delt that it's easy to use them and get less side delt.
Yes.
So I try to keep a lot stricter than I used to, and this was not easy at first. This is one of the few movements that I actually stopped tracking. Yes, because tracking was actually, oh, I want to get better, I want to add weight, I want to progressively overload.
Not focusing on the form, being present, your effort relative to failure.
Yeah, which is what actually matters. So the tracking should help you to improve those over time, but it was actually getting in the way, at least for me, and so I just don't track that movement anymore. I know roughly how much weight I'm going to use. I'm probably going to increase the weight once every year or two anyway, because it's a cable lateral raise.
Auto regulation, you come in on the day and whatever feels challenging for the what rep range you're going for.
I might get 10, I might get 12, I might get 15, but I would rather have them all be quality reps and not focus on counting or on progressing, which sounds counterintuitive, but I think especially when you're advanced, it's a little bit more important, yeah.
No, it makes sense to me. What about the anchor height of the cable station?
So I've done the thing where you raise it up in order to get more stretch. I think that's a good variation. I think it's fun. There's nothing wrong with that. I like it. I've recently lowered it back down again and stood a little bit closer, just because I found that it feels a little bit smoother and it makes that top contracted position have a little bit more tension. Because what was happening was that it was challenging at the start and then too easy at the top. And so evening that out a little bit was a good change for me, but I think trying both and seeing which people prefer is a good idea.
I'd also just add globally with the technique, you'll want to try and bring your arms out in the scapular plane is the term that we use. Just you think of the direction your lateral delts are and you go out in that position. So it's not completely by your sides or not completely in the front, like a front raise. It's that 45 degrees in between those two extremes.
Yeah, and I think this is why I used to see some professional bodybuilders train, like you look at Ronnie Coleman, his arms are quite bent. And I think that allows him to get more in that plane compared to just totally straight arms. Yeah. And so for him, or maybe it evens things out, and so it makes the top slightly easier, so it smooths out the resistance curve. But I do see a lot of people, a lot of very high level, both natural and enhanced lifters, use a little bit of arm bend. And so whether it's a cable, whether it's a dumbbell, the arms don't necessarily need to be locked. And so experimenting with different arm positions and different elbow bends could be a good idea.
And then lastly, with the dumbbell laterals, you have the luxury of changing the rotation of your shoulder. You could reflect this in the picture facing down, old school bodybuilding, internal rotation. You got to get that supraspinatus. That's the best way to do it. But then you've also got the neutral grip, which is the most common people are using as well. But you can also do thumbs up, getting some more external rotation. If you're going out laterally, you're still working your side delts. This is where I would choose what is most comfortable for you. It's the simplest way to problem solve any complexity and confusion with all these different options. You apply the principles that we've taught with the laterals, and choosing a comfortable technique is the biggest thing to keep in mind.
Right, because sustainability is going to be the most important thing. And so I have seen some people where they say, oh, but the biomechanics, and these things are just subtleties. And if something causes you pain, it's not worth getting some kind of hypothetical optimal benefit.
No, and frequency of twice per week for shoulder work goes a really long way.
For sure.
Doing lateral delts twice a week is awesome, because if you come from a purely compound background like myself, just doing your overhead press, vertical push, and a horizontal press, bench press, you're not completely fatiguing those lateral delts. I mean, to get a similar effect, you'd have to do 5, 6, 7 sets of those exercises, and then the dreaded fatigue comes in. So that's why you don't want to be doing and just spamming compounds. Adding in these isolation 4 lateral delts really can cap off your physique.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. And if someone builds very impressive shoulders from nothing but overhead pressing, they're lucky.
Yeah, and imagine what they could...
Exactly, right. They could be better.
Yeah, they could have some absolute cannonballs there for delts.
Yeah.
Learn how to mix calisthenics and weights. Get the best of both worlds by shopping FitnessFAQs workouts.
Moving on to the back of the shoulders, we have the rear delts. Now for me, my favorite exercise is pull-ups and rows. I haven't had much experience doing direct rear delt work, just because aesthetically it's never been a weak point.
Right.
I don't sense that that's a limiting factor for bottlenecking my strength or anything to that effect. So for me, I personally don't do dedicated isolation volume for rear delts, because that would take away from my time, effort, resources with other exercises. What do you do for rear delts?
So I've done a few different things. I would actually agree that for most people it's not super necessary, especially if someone is strapped for time, or they're super busy, or they find that it fills out nicely anyway, like in your case. Certainly I don't think anyone's gonna look at your physique and be like, man, but where's his rear delts? You know?
I've never been asked, what do you do for rear delts even? It's not a common muscle group that people will point to.
Yeah, but I do think it is an area that it's hard to get too big either, right? I don't think I've ever seen someone's physique and be like, man, that's a little bit much, that area, right? Whereas some other muscle groups, yeah, that sometimes happens, but rear delts, it's often taken care of, but I think to truly maximize it, maybe some isolations could be a good idea, because it is going to be hit with rows, but sometimes isolating a little further could be a good idea. What I like to do, I've done a couple different exercises. One would be skiers. So it kind of looks like a row, but it's a little bit more isolationist, so to speak. So essentially you're on a bench, you have dumbbells in your hands, you're leaning forward slightly on the bench. You can play around with your foot position so that you have enough balance there, but it doesn't feel constricting or anything. I wouldn't go super wide though, because it'll get in the way of the dumbbell. So a fairly narrow stance generally. And so you're leaning forward and then you're just driving back. I think for a lot of people, they do their rear delts and the arms are up and they're going out.
For the stretch, the cross
Exactly.
body aspect.
Maybe they're doing a pec deck, a reverse pec deck, or reverse fly or something like that. I think for a lot of people that gets quite a lot of traps involved, and they might not feel it as much when they're elevated. And so having something where it's a little bit more tucked can be a good idea. And then this is a contraction focused movement, and so it's very failure friendly. We did a few sets and all of them were beyond failure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and these are tough, but I found them to be quite productive for the rear delts and then also for the mid back as well. I also have done something, what I call a thickinator. So it's essentially a rear delt cable crossover with both arms at once. And then it's going well beyond failure as well, because this is generally also going to be a contraction focused movement. So you're getting more stretch when you're across, but it's usually still most challenging in that contracted position. So some people might look and say, oh look, the big stretch. Yes, but even if you're beyond failure, you can usually keep doing this part of the range of motion. And so I might get to where I can barely lock it out, and I'll get one where I can't quite lock it out, but I'm trying to struggle. And then I'll just sort of keep going all the way until I can't move at all.
The good aspect of that thickinator is individual technique options.
Yeah.
Because you're strapped into a machine for rear delts, you've got that one kind of path that you can do it, play with the seat height, torso position a bit, but there's just so much more that you can adopt your body to make it suit you, feel comfortable, get a good stimulus.
You can get more elbow bend. Sometimes you can put the cables higher and then go low to high, almost more replicating the sort of skier type of arm path. And so trying some like this, trying some a little bit more where it's straight across, a little bit more arm bend or less arm bend can be a good idea. And you can really make it your own. Yeah.
Back to the skier, what I like about it is the compound nature of it, the ability to lift heavy weights for this muscle group, as opposed to your dinky tees with dumbbells, with your arms straight and using, going out more in that horizontal abduction. Doing these skiers, it replicates basic human movement, being able to ski, as the name suggests, sprinting, like in this fashion. What's awesome is the scapular component too, being able to get in that retraction. You're getting in some stimulus to your mid-back, which goes a long way.
Yeah, for sure. It's rear delts, but it's also a lot more than that. And you mentioned you felt something in your mid-back that you hadn't quite felt before?
Yeah, because I'm getting this real deep inner range contraction with heavy weights. It wasn't a pump, it wasn't pain, but it was just my body just a little twitch, just a muscle twitch. And definitely feeling DOMs in my mid-back today. One, because it's a novel exercise, but two, because I had Jeff shouting at me to use 17.5 for the first time I did it, and finish the exercise as you should, barely being able to get a few reps out, but still productive.
Yeah, and so I really like movements in general that are cheatable and you can progress beyond failure and keep going after you've hit that strict technical failure. Definitely not for everyone. If someone likes stricter movements or they like training lighter, that's totally fine. But I just feel like I can get a lot more out of almost the creative side of bodybuilding in the moment when I have that freedom to go a little bit beyond failure.
Plus, it looks absolutely fantastic for any social media post where you're looking down the barrel of the camera, full eye contact, never breaking, just straight to failure.
Especially when you're lean, because you have like all the details just popping out. Yeah.
I remember being balls deep in the set and then Jeff's just zooming into my face. It was good times. Next we have the front delts. Now with this muscle group, it's often worked completely fine with your compound pressing movements because you think of everything. Bench press, it's shoulder flexion, some capacity, dips, shoulder flexion, overhead press. So this area is not one that people tend to need to isolate, but you love exercise. So you want to have exercise that you can put in your program if you want to do some dedicated work towards the anterior delts. I'm going to come at this with a calisthenics, gymnastics strength exercise. The wall walk is a humbling exercise. The wall walk.
Wow. Okay.
Whoa. So you're starting to push up, you walk yourself up the wall into a handstand, and then you reverse the motion back down. Yep, so you're walking and doing relative shoulder flexion. So you're working the anterior deltoid.
Right.
A few benefits here. It's a bodyweight exercise. So you're getting all of that scapular rotator cuff stuff that you just don't get as much from free weight type of movements. So it's good to make yourself diverse and strong in different ways. It also improves your overhead strength, handstand. So you're getting horizontal, diagonal, as well as overhead strength. It is always there because the wall is your gym. You can do this at the comfort of your own home, or you can flex on people at the gym and they'll think, oh, this movement looks really easy. Yeah, bro, try and do it with straight arms and take controlled little steps as you go up. And it really benefits from high reps. We're talking setting rep goals.
So it's one rep all the way up the wall and then all the way.
That's one rep. It's a lot of time under tension there, isn't it? So the best way to do this movement as a beginner is to set a rep goal.
Okay.
As someone new to it, 25 reps is going to be a pretty good workout. Breaking that up however you see fit. Maybe you do sets of 3, you take a break, do another set of 3, keep going. Eventually doing upwards of 50 reps of this is completely normal in gymnastics circles, and you'll get some hypertrophy. I know this video is mainly about underrated exercise for building muscle. No one's going to contend that this is the best exercise for building muscle given the skill component, coordination, a lot of other muscle groups involved. But if you want a bodyweight option that absolutely fries your anterior delts, that isn't some exercise that requires extreme skill. Everyone can jump into this. It is a nice one to have in your arsenal.
Interesting. I'm gonna go also calisthenics on this one. I'm gonna say the dip on this one. It's not something I do that often, but if someone for some reason kidnapped me and was like, you need to put on as much muscle on your front delts as possible, or you are just not long for this world, which is a really weird scenario. I don't know why someone would be, they're like a GVS fan that also wants me to have really big front delts.
It's oddly specific because I think they want you to film your videos.
Please don't do this.
On the 45, so they can just see this protrusion coming out, the tumor even.
It's probably a fetish of theirs.
I think it's oddly specific. I think that would pay quite well in the Only Jeffs.
The underground Only Jeff fan world. But I'm gonna say the dip, because if you just look at if you want a big stretch on the delt, and the stretch isn't everything, of course, but if you really want to stretch the front delt, the dip is exactly how you would do it. And soreness isn't everything, but the few times the front delt has been sore for me, I was like, what did I do? Oh, dips. That's just the movement. Something like a close grip bench press, you're not getting the same type of stretch as you are either on the chest or on the front delt.
Dip is going behind the torso significantly.
And you just don't get in that position with typical movements otherwise. Even if it's like an incline dumbbell fly or something, even if it's some kind of overhead press, you're not getting in the same position or even close.
Yeah, and the loadability of the dip is just why it is a staple bodyweight calisthenics exercise, because it's not a gimmick. We could look at the wall walk, and the criticism of it is that, what do you do? 50 reps, 75 reps?
Right.
So once you get good at it, you
weighted backpack, I guess.
Yeah, but then it's a bit...
It's falling off of you and
anything
stuff.
that gets a little bit cumbersome, and then you're upside down with a weight vest, it's a bit meh. So that would be more of an adjunct to the king, which is the weighted dip in that respect.
And they complement each other well, because one's a little bit more, like you're always in a contracted-ish position and you're working more on your stability and everything, but the dip is just sort of the exact opposite,
Yeah, and you know you're progressing the dip when you're at a mainstream gym and your legs are almost spread apart in a horse stance because you're playing with 60 kilos. Then you got to put in a special request in the gym form. Can we please get some calibrated plates? Not so I can hang with the powerlifters, so that I could do my dips here freely.
Just don't pinch anything.
Yeah, oh man, yeah. You gotta be careful with the dip belt on putting that around too, because it clips strange parts in your groin and stuff. Like in the heat of battle, I've done these weighted dips.
We're not talking about adductors.
Oh yeah. I'm seeing the doctor for something very niche. You don't want the clipping the adductors, because it leaves this weird bruise and red mark. It's just sensitive, and it just takes away from you just attacking your dip. So just be mindful.
Stay safe out there.